Hello and welcome to Overcome a Mental Health Podcast. I am your host, Travis White. It's a place for you to share your mental health stories. I'm very excited to be introduced to today's guest. Welcome, Noah. I would like to welcome Noah May to the show. Welcome, Noah.
Hi, Travis. Thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure to have you on. Noah is the host of Lethal Venom podcast, and I'm not going to waste any more time here. Just turn the microphone over to him and let him share his story with us.
Yeah, so I guess I could kind of go from beginning, kind of. My childhood growing up wasn't the typical normal childhood that most kids have, but it wasn't a bad childhood at all. My dad growing up wasn't around. He left before I was born, so I never got to meet my father. But my mom did a really good job of trying to keep it like a normal household, as like nothing was wrong. And she was actually sexually assaulted by him. And that's kind of how I was conceived, was from sexual assault. And after that incident had happened, she had moved back in with her parents, which were my grandparents. And we kind of just lived in the same household. As I was little, we've not moved or anything, but that's kind of how childhood was. And then I kind of had normal childhood growing up. Um, did everything like a normal kid would do. I went to school. I didn't go to public school, went there for the normal 8 to 3, and would come home. And of course, on weekends, I would watch TV and I would do homework during the school week and everything. But it wasn't until about fifth or sixth grade when I started getting to like a very personal journey with my mental health. And my mental health started when I was when I was 13, so I was in eighth grade. But fifth and sixth grade, I started getting bullied a lot for numerous reasons. It was just and it wasn't really from how I looked. It was kind of how I would say, because I was sitting with my legs crossed, because that's just how I was sitting. And I'd see it on TV all the time, people doing it. And I would also apparently walk very flamboyant down the hall, which I don't know why normal walking was considered flamboyant when they did the same thing. So I don't know why they assumed that, but that I was just always called. So most of my life, I was always called I was gay or something, even before I even knew what it was, because my mom and parents did a really good job kind of filtering the stuff from me. And so when it finally came to my depression, I was 13 and I was starting the eighth grade year. My grandmother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. And it was kind of like someone had really just hit me with a hammer. She was just not the same person I knew. And I kind of distanced myself from her because she wasn't the same Nana that I had just yesterday. So when she got sick, I kind of disassociated with her because it was just kind of I lost someone due to the sickness. Um, During that time, my depression is when it first started. I had a really bad porn addiction during that time too. I saw porn as like a way for an escape into an alternate reality that was I didn't have to worry about anything that was going on at school, at home at that time. I started asking and like doing really rebellious things. I would always hang around kids at school that were very much the rowdy bunch that would not, the normal kids that most parents probably wouldn't let their kid hang out with. Some of their bad behavior rubbed off on me. I started cursing a lot during that time. And that's kind of when I got introduced to curse words a little bit more, was during that time. And yeah, I remember 16, the following year, my mom during that whole time knew something was wrong. She could just sense that this is not the same son I had a year ago. And he caught me watching porn because I was stupid, watched it in the middle of the day because I didn't know the do's and don'ts of that. And he caught me and she just let me talk for about 2 hours about what was going on with the home life because my grandparents kind of fought with my grandmother sick. She kind of started fighting a lot of us and would kind of get into physical fights because of just her mental state wasn't there. And she always hit my grandfather a lot, but he'd hit back to protect himself. To me as a kid, that I saw that and thought that you don't do that. You don't hit women. So it was just a lot for a 13-year-old to really process going on to 14. And so we went to the doctor. My mom said, okay, I'm taking you to the doctor now. We're going to get this situated. We went to my family physician, told him everything that was going on. And he said, yeah, it's no doubt. You have depression. There's no doubt.
Well, I think it's awesome that your mom like noticed it and got you the help as soon as she could. Because I think that's a really good sign you had somebody in your corner from the very beginning.
Well, a benefit for that was she also dealt with depression as well. So mental health tends to run in our family a lot. So you had, I think my grandparents had thought that my great grandparents, I think, suffered some from mental health. So it's one of the traits that I sadly got passed on down with too. So that's kind of,
Yeah. So basically everybody has an understanding of in a way of what you were going through and what you were dealing with. So they were able to catch the signs.
yeah.
My when my mental health started, the people around me, like they knew what the signs were and they knew what I was going like what was happening and they knew it was mental health related, but nobody had really been through it except for and if they had, it was never talked about. My mother-in-law has a good understanding of it because I know she's dealt with some stuff. But I think it's really cool that you had your mom like in your corner and saying like, "No, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take care of this because we don't want it to get any worse." But thinking back to that, like what do your worst days look like? Like when
Worst
things
days were, for me, it was, I had such a huge struggle trying to wake up every day. And really, it was going to school. That was kind of the hardest thing for me was waking up and going there because it was kind of like hell on earth. It really was a shit show. I didn't want to get up and go at all. But I also wasn't smart enough at the time to where I could actually fake being sick. I was never good at doing that because my mom could read it and be like, get up, you're going. It was always, it was something that I couldn't fool her with. So
yeah.
I was like, okay, screw it, we're not going to do it. I'm faced with it. I did have suicide thoughts during that time, but I didn't. When I say suicide thoughts, I don't want people to think that I attempted and actually went through with anything. I had the ideation to it. I never really attempted it. So the furthest I went was just a general idea. I didn't really do it because I was like, I don't really have anything to hang from. I couldn't because it. My mom also was very vigilant of what I did. I'm an only child, and anyone that's an only child knows that you're the one and only person they focus on. So, of course, it was like bald eagle right here all the time. And so it would have been really hard to hide cuts on your arm or legs or anything from her. And I'm pretty sure she probably snooped through my room too when I was at school. As bad as I don't know if she did, but I just kind of feel like she did. So trying to hide something, that no, that would never have worked. So, but that's kind of how my worst days were. It kind of depended on the porn addiction. Well, I'd say it depended on that. That was an everyday thing. I think it was if I couldn't get to like a, and when I did porn, I didn't do any like sexual things at all because I was still kind of stupid in that department. This is the brain of I don't know what that is. I don't know how that works. Even though I'm seeing it, I don't know how that physically works. But I got so addicted to it. It's like, okay, I'll watch this one video and then I'll do homework. And if my phone wouldn't work or the internet was out, I'd have to I'd blow a gasket because I couldn't do it. That's how addicted I was to it.
Yeah, and I feel like as most people go through mental health problems, I think they almost have to find that one vice that keeps them kind of grounded just to get through the days. And mine was, I mean, mine was like this is mine was like drinking excess amounts of like soda, like to the point where it was not good because and just screwing up my body totally. Because I was having medical problems on top of my mental health as well. Or I'd bury myself in a book and just not like pay attention to anybody around me. Like it's just because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to talk. Didn't want to go anywhere. Uh, but so what was it that made you just keep fighting? What makes it so you keep fighting through all the bad?
A lot of it, it's hard for the depression because it's something that I live with to this day. I was diagnosed with clinical depression, which for people that don't know, clinical depression is a form of depression that comes and goes in waves, and it's very unpredictable. I can go a period where I could be 2 years depression free, and then for a week I'm depressed, and then it goes away for 5 years and then comes back for 6 months. It it's really hard to determine when it is. I will say certain months of the year trigger the depression. So for me, January until March or April tends to be kind of like the red flag months for me, just due to the things that I haven't even really mentioned yet, to the future thing or past stuff when that usually time frame of when everything happened was usually first of the year. So and it kind of adds up. So there are points where people do tend to have to watch me a little bit, but it after that it just comes and goes in waves. There was a period where I was depression free for a full year. Um, and that was I think junior year of high school. And senior year of high school would have been the same thing if my lovely anxiety diagnosis didn't come up, because that's a whole
Yeah, so you're dealing with well first let me back up because I want to say that my depression is the same way. It comes in waves. Like it's like I'll be good for a few months at a time and all of a sudden like I just get hit really hard and it's like I don't want to do anything. But you're dealing with this depression and anxiety stuff. So and I'm right there with you. So I feel for you on that front. So it's like when one leaves, it's like the other one comes. It's like, hello, I'm here now. Depression's gone. I'm gonna kick you right in the face with anxiety.
yeah, and the anxiety came very later in life, and it's such a weird thing of how it got diagnosed. Remember, I was in senior year of high school, and I just sensed something wrong was going to happen with senior year because I woke up the very first day of senior year sick. My whole life, from kindergarten up until that point, since 2007, and this was 2019, I've never woken up on the first day of school sick. And then my brain just told me this year's going, something's going to happen this year because it was just so odd. I've never have been sick prior to that, leading up to school or nothing. So it was just kind of a whirlwind of why is it I'm sick on the first day? Now, granted, did I get sick on like later in the school year? Yeah, every kid does. But first day was very odd. But I was fine the next day. And then I think my suspicions were right because I remember it was, I think it always gets fuzzy and I always go back, but I think it was February. I remember February of 2020, the month before the whole world shut down. I started really, my body was changing for some reason. Um, I had gone to bed. I used to go to bed every night about 10:30. That was kind of my bedtime. I always wake up at 7. Um, and I just remember there was a point in the middle of the night where I woke up and I really nauseous to the point where I actually threw up. I thought, well, the flu, I'm staying home. It's like, I'm sick. That's it for me. And then mm, when I woke up the next morning, the feeling was still there. But and so we thought, oh, I'm sick. So um, I stayed home, and it was kind of weird because it was kind of a weird feeling. I didn't feel achy. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have none of the other symptoms that you have with the flu. It was just nausea to the point where I had to puke. This is a weird feeling. Um, this kind of happened off and on for a month. Um, I had gotten sick a month earlier in January when we first went back. I got sick because cold weather and hot temperatures don't mix well with me. And if it's raining, that's just a double plus for me. I get sick in the cold very easily. And I thought, well, maybe my immune system's just really bad. It was just kind of this awkward thing where I would have these nausea spells to the point where I would throw up in the middle of the night, or it would happen early in the, like right before I go to school. And it made me late to school a few times, but it was just weird because after I would get there, I'd be fine. So in my brain, I'm thinking, what's going on? And my mom and I sat down and we're like, this something is not wrong, but I don't have a fever. I don't have any aches or anything that usually associates with the flu or even a cold because I wasn't even having sinus problems. It was just a stomach issue. And we thought, well, could it be your depression acting up? And I told her, I said, well, the whole 4 years I've had it, I've never been this depressed to the point where I throw up. He said, yeah, that's true. So this this continued on all throughout February. I was in and out of school for like a month. I think in total between January and before school got out for the COVID pandemic, I was out in total a month. I missed a month of school at that point. We went to my doctor and we told him everything that was going on. I said, no, I don't have aches. I don't have fever. I don't have nothing. Nothing's wrong with me sinus wise. And I said, it's just stomach problem. And even he was kind of confused. And you never want to go to a doctor and their first thing said, I don't know what's wrong with you. That's something you never want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, well, do you think it's something in your circle? Do you think something's happened or changed for you to where it's making you nervous to the point you throw up? Because he said it could be nerves, but he didn't say anxiety because it was kind of a nerves and anxiety to me are different. People might disagree with that, but I find nerves are just kind of like a split second thing and they go away. And it's like not severe. And I said, well, no, what I'd be nervous about. And he said, has school been difficult? Have you been having trouble with friends lately, family? And I said, well, school's been hard, but I mean, that's normal. I said, I've dealt with hard school classes in the past. And he said, well, let's try this. Let's see if school's causing it. Stay out of school. He ordered me to stay out for a week to see if maybe it was school related. Lo and behold, it was. We went back the following week to do kind of a check in and kind of an update about how the week was. He did more research and found that anxiety kind of causes the symptoms that you're having. He said, but I want to be clear. You probably think that anxiety comes from chest pain, you can't breathe, and all that. He said, and I thought, well, yeah, that's why I didn't think I had it because I didn't have pain here and I couldn't breathe. I had none of those problems. And he said, well, in some cases, anxiety attacks can happen in your stomach. And so you get real nervous to the point where you throw up. I said, well, I just love being the oddball of having everything. Everyone has this normal thing wrong with them. I'm over here. It's like, here I am. There's everyone else. I can't be normal I can't fit into a crowd. I have to be like this oddball that stumps doctors and everything. So, but he said, I think you have anxiety just from the fact that you haven't really had the nausea symptoms at all this week from you going, I think it's that. Well, then we thought, well, how do you stop it? What do I need to do? And he said, well, do you want to do homeschooling? I think we had mentioned that. He said, honestly, if this is going to stop that, if homeschooling is going to stop this, then yes, do it. He said, I'll give you a referral. I'll write a doctor's note or something and send to the high school to tell them what's going on. So we were actually almost about to do that, but then the school shut down for COVID. So we didn't have to end up following through with it, but it was the next step that we did. But um, a whole month of vomiting does something to your body. I had lost 20 pounds during that time. I weighed 140 when it started. I weighed 120 by the time I got a diagnosis. All the muscles in my arms, especially, had gotten really weak because of all the weight loss I had lost. Um, I tend to have really bad weakness in my hands now. I'm real shaky with my left hand now for some reason. I've noticed that if it's like any angle, I'm not steady with my left hand. My right hand tends to, when I'm opening a bottle, it kind of peels the skin back in my hand because that's how brittle and tender my skin was at the time. So I would actually have to use um, towels, or I had to use like a paper towel or something that had a rough edge around the whole center of it to be able to open up a Coke bottle, or just any kind of bottle or anything that had like rough edges around the lid. I had to open it up with like a touching thing or anything other than my hand. My doctor had diagnosed or had prescribed me Ensure to help gain the weight gain. So I had to drink one of those a day. Those kind of helped a little bit. It brought the weight back up, but it was slow because of all the weight I had lost. He also had ordered me to go to a doctor in town about maybe thinking about doing like a test inside my stomach to see if it was actually anxiety or if it's something in there. And of course, he gave me a lot of medicine for it as well. But the anxiety stuck with me. It stuck with me for 2 years after that. It had very serious consequences. Um, I couldn't do anything without getting nervous, and it like going to the grocery store, going 5 minutes down the road to a person's house or a gas station, I would have this thing, nausea to the point where I'd puke. That would literally, and this was everywhere we went. Places I'd been to since I was 4 years old, I'd get nervous to the point where I couldn't leave the house. I mean, that's that. A lot of people don't understand how bad it was. It it got to the point where I couldn't leave the house because I was so embarrassed for how it was. And I thought it would get better, and it never did until got on some medicine. But it was always embarrassing trying to eat out with people. 'Cause, I mean, what do you tell people? Well, I'm anxious. I can't eat.
Jeez, man,
I was really embarrassed from it for a long time.
I'm sorry that you had to go through all that. That's pretty harsh case of anxiety. And I've dealt with it in a different way, but I've never got the stomach pains really. Like I'll get like chest pains a little bit, and I just get to the point where I just overthink so much, and it's like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go that place. This person's thinking bad about me. Like, and then it's like always like, oh, I'm a piece of shit, like that type of stuff. But man, like I hear your story, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all that. What what types of tools and stuff do you use for anxiety and depression?
Both of them was really difficult to do at the same time because I also failed to mention during the COVID pandemic, I actually ended up getting COVID, and I had long COVID for 6 months.
Jeez.
No sense of smell or taste. I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't taste anything. Felt physically fine. I just couldn't. These two senses were gone, and we thought it was just a normal cold. We went to my doctor, and he did like a COVID test, but he did kind of went like inside my nose, like probably went all the way up to here. He didn't go like all the way back in here, like how people say it feels like they scratch your brain. No, that's what I was, what I've been told. They didn't go that far back, but they kind of went a little. They still went up there. Well, the test came back negative. But oh, good, I don't have it. Well, 2 months later, we got back in, and this was December, and they actually did blood work on me and found that I did have COVID cells in my blood. So actually ended up having COVID, but I was misdiagnosed at the time. So here I am going to stores, I was going to class, and people don't know that, never knew that during that
Yeah,
time. It was years later till I told people about that. But at the time, I've just
yeah,
been a walking death bomb. I'm
the
just like
whole
a
time.
walking hazard. This whole time I've been a hazard to everyone. But my depression during that time skyrocketed. It was so bad. My suicide thoughts really came back or hardcore. Um, and of course, the weight loss kind of started up again due to me not eating because I couldn't taste anything. So there was no pleasure in eating anymore. Wow. Everything, it was like everything I had worked up, getting better, got knocked off. But one of the big ways that helped me was music during that time. That was such a godsend for me. It was just a really beneficial thing to have. And it was even before the anxiety started. Like all throughout high school, I really started getting into music, and I've learned so many songs now to where it's hard for me to pinpoint and remember like exactly when first heard the song because some I've known so many. But I think middle school started out then, but high school helped me, and especially college has helped me tremendously. The anxiety with it just really helped me get through that difficult time. I think if music wasn't around or wasn't invented, I don't know what it would be now.
The exact same way. What type of music do you listen to? Like, what's your go-to?
Uh, Pop is my number one. I'm basing on that. Pop and R&B, I like those two a lot. Country I listen to since I'm from the South. It'd be uncultured for me not to.
Yeah,
But if it's with the package that I have, then people get surprised when I listen to rap. People get really surprised on that one. I'm like, what? I like to be with the crowd. I want to be in
hey,
the circle.
yeah. Hey, I always say when it comes to music, like, who cares? You like what you like, and music is music. And it's like if it changes, helps those moods, and like just gets you through that rough time. What like one of my favorite pastimes is going to concerts. I'm like a little bit of everything. Was when I grew up, I was into the emo scene, so I'm huge into like still emo stuff and screaming and heavy metal. But I'll listen to pop. What else? Country. Really, it's all over the place. It depends on my mood.
Yeah.
It's always good though to hear that music had that effect on somebody as well.
Yeah. One album, and I actually have like this. I used to at my old apartment in Auburn when I used to have these pictures up of albums, and this one from Ariana, her, this album was the one that kind of saved me from the longest term. It was kind of my healing album and was the album that really I listened to a lot. And so that's been my number one album from day one, as it helped me get through a lot of those personal and really dark times. I think without that album, I wouldn't be here today from that. And that album really helped me. It just has really good songs on it, and I just really like it.
It's crazy how there's always that one album that comes at like the right time and just helps you get through everything. I have a couple of those that I from even when I was way younger that I still have on repeat.
Yeah, well, the album actually came out like 2 years before my
Oh, did it?
anxiety. So it came out 2 years before then. But then, for some reason, during when I first got it, it was just really close to me. I liked it when I first heard it. It wasn't my favorite
Hmm.
at first when I heard it. But after a few listens, I liked it. But then when I really got the anxiety stuff, it just clutched on and held tight where It was the album I listened to all the time. Listen to all those songs 5,000 times. I'm not kidding. It's probably like, I think the highest listened song on there I had was like over 600 streams, which that was all from like the summer before, but we won't talk about that. But it was just, it just saved me. I don't know why that album kind of has stuck with me, but it really has. It's just been personal. And then there are a few albums that came afterwards that I think a year after I got diagnosed with anxiety that were two of my favorites. So there's like that one that I showed, and the other two have been my top three. They've kind of been my healing album. They've always been like top three, 100%.
It's awesome. That's really cool. And since you're somebody that deals with both anxiety and depression, like, so let me kind of tell a personal story just so you can get to understand where I'm going with this. So this past year, I've been working a lot on myself. I've never worked this deeply on my anxiety and depression before until the last year. Long story short, I had some I started having some medical problems back in 2009, and that's kind of when everything started for me. But last year, they came back up, and my anxiety and depression kicked in full gear. I started going to therapy and dealt with my anxiety first, and the depression was kind of just muted at the time. Like, it wasn't a huge deal at the time this was all happening. My anxiety was just kicking my butt. So lately, it's been my depression has kind of taken over. I got to the point where I could, when I felt anxious, like, I could subconsciously, like, okay, that's my anxiety speaking. This is what I can do to push those thoughts out and get over it. But it feels like to me, my depression is so much harder for me to kick. Which one to you, like, when it comes to like working through your anxiety and depression, which one to you feels like it's harder to, I don't want to say overcome, but kind of push aside and, you know, even yourself out?
Before I got on medicine for the anxiety, I would 100% say anxiety. But um, after I had went to a psychiatrist and got on really good anxiety medication, I would say now depression, because depression for me has been curable. I've had like multiple different medicines for it. I've been on different milligrams of doses for it. And it just seems like nothing really works. I've increased it, decreased it. I mean, so that's always been a problem. But when anxiety came up, oh, that was not number one. I could get rid of it for to save my life until I got on medicine for it. And then after that, depression kind of came back in as being the main
Yes.
aim to get rid of. I would say now depression.
Yeah. It's hard to find that right dosage of medicine. I mean, I lucked out for what I was taking, and I found it pretty fast, but everybody else tells me, like, no, I had to take like 3 or 4 things before I was able to find anything that worked. I was like, well, I guess I should count my blessings then, because I can't speak on that too much, because it worked from the very beginning. So it's tough that you had to go through all that medication to find something that helped you out.
I was kind of in like the minority a little bit. Here's me being an oddball, but it would work for a period of time, and then let's stop working. We get on new medicine. It worked. It stopped working. So I've had good medicine at first, but then after a while, we had to change it constantly because it would work for a good period of time, and then decides, oh, we're not going to work today. Like I had to go through multiple medications, but it wasn't like within a year. It was like over time.
Yeah.
So that oddball.
No, no, I was that oddball with my medical problems, so I can relate to you in some way. What do you think is like the biggest misconceptions about people who struggle with depression and anxiety?
Me, the biggest misconception is that it's hard because everyone seems to have general idea of what depression and anxiety is, but I think they don't really know the whole magnitude of how it is. It's something that I really find misconception is getting help for it. I think a lot of people think that if you go to a therapy office, if you go to a psychiatrist or even your doctor, you're kind of seen as or something. And that's technically not really the case. It's usually you could go into a therapy office and the people that you kind of go in and see are normal people that are sitting out in the lobby. And movies don't really do a good job portraying that. They like to portray therapy and psychiatrist offices as the cuckoo box of here's a guy that's schizophrenic with multicolored hair. Here's a girl talking to her imaginary friend that's sitting beside her. That's kind of what how TV and movies really like to portray it. But in actuality, it's here's a man that just lost his wife due to her battle with cancer. Here's a mom that's three kids that's dealing with postpartum. Here's a kid that's in fifth grade that is going and seeing his therapist after school. I mean, you see more normal people in an office compared to crazy people. I think that's the biggest misconception is people think that if you go to them places, you're automatically crazy and everyone in there is. And that's not true.
Yeah, yeah, that was very well said. So I applaud you. Because it's crazy. It's like, and the more you talk to people, the more you realize everybody has a story, whether it's them personally dealing with it or a brother, a sister, an aunt, and uncle, a mom, a dad. Like everybody has a story. There's some relationship to somebody that's going through some mental health crisis.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, a huge basic misconception I've received from it is people really think that men don't open up enough about it. And that's kind of the stigma of what America wants you to think. And even overseas, it might be more accepting for men to come out and share what they're feeling. But the US tends to really portray it as men are not supposed to show emotions. They're supposed to hide it and provide for the family. They're not supposed to have tender skin. They're supposed to have thick armor around them that then really breaks them down. And that's totally not true. Now there might be some men out there that can do that and do it well, but it it's hard. It's really hard. And I want men to know that who cares if you break down and show your true side. It's better than to let it out than keep it in because it will eat you alive when you keep it in. It really will.
Yes, I agree. I'm one of those ones that I'll just let it all go. Like I don't really care. Think when you I think the hardest problem for me, like when I started getting really bad depression or anxiety or whatever it was admitting that I had a problem. But as soon as I saw it for myself, it was so much easier to be open about it and start talking about it. What to you, what's like the hardest part about sharing your story?
When I first started sharing it was the judgment I was going to get because I knew people were going to really think I was overreacting. And it was something that was really, I've really blown out of proportion, which to some degree, people can think that. Or now I think I overthink it a lot because I could be crying, having a bad day, and they'll be like, "No, what's wrong today? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I got ink on my finger." And they're like, "Got to the sink, go wash your hands." I've gotten to that point where I literally cry over everything. But first, I was scared to really showcase that emotion because I think my classmates wanted to have this image of me, the smart kid that really does really well in school, has a good family, comes from a good home. Nothing has he doesn't have anything to worry about. When it was, I came from a broken home. I came from personal demons that almost took me out. And I was just an outcast from them. I just didn't see that. So I knew that if I opened up or said anything about my depression or anxiety or depression mainly at the time, they wouldn't have believed it. They would have not been supportive. I firmly believe to this day, if I said anything, I firmly believe that if I woke up and was in the hospital, none of them would have said anything to me. They would not have come by and said, "Are you okay? What happened?" I can come back to school, then wouldn't think anything of it. That's just who they were to me. And now I open it up and share my story with them to kind of show people that don't be silent like I was, that if you stay silent, it leads to bad repercussions to the point where it cannot be reversible. It's irreversible at some points. So you have to speak out. And I just didn't have a good support system. The only person I had was my mom, all I had. And I was kind of lucky, as I had mentioned earlier, that she had depression too. So, I mean, she understood what it was. And a lot of my kids, like, I look back at my classmates and yeah, some of them did deal with anxiety and depression too, because I think one girl that, not whatever happened to her, but she came to school and had scratches and cuts on her arms. And I just knew that as like, oh my God, you're supposed to do that. That's bad. And, but she didn't really talk about it. And so I was kind of like the same way they were. They didn't speak about it. I didn't speak about it. But to this day, I've not really had any of them reach out to me and be like, I never knew that you went through all that during that time. I've not said anything. And I firmly believe that they just didn't really care about me in school. And now it's funny that they thought that I was the most unsuccessful one, but here I am with three podcasts, one that's in the top five, and I have done like 100 episodes. Right.
That's awesome.
And it's like, I went through a lot of stuff in the past to get to where I am today, and firmly believe that they probably did not expect me to be the most successful one in the whole class. I just think to me, it's karma coming back from them for how they treated me.
You know what I say to those people though? Screw their judgment. Like it's just I don't see how people can sit and point fingers and look at somebody like, oh, like, and judge them for something that they have most of the time they don't understand.
Yeah.
But podcast in the top five, that's really cool. What what was it that was it initially your mental health problems that got you into podcasting, or was it something else?
Casting to me was a way for me to finally speak up and tell my truth. It was years of being silenced from people other than my parents. My parents, during this whole time, have been the most supportive group. So this has nothing to do with them. This has been everyone else that's been outside my house. Everyone kept me in a box. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. And this show has been the best way for me to finally speak my truth. But I wanted it to be a show where I'm honest about everything. I've told, I've as you can say, I'm real professional at it. I probably said everything under the sun about anything to the point where I probably would have lawsuits coming for me. But it's the honest truth, and I really haven't lied about anything. I I've shared stuff that I don't really. I look back and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that, but that was part of that persona of me being have to shut up. Literally called out my whole classmates. I've literally did a whole episode basically cussing them out. I did like a whole ranking of them and um just tell them really was what I did. Said that really at the end. I said, y'all didn't really care about me. I was like, yeah, honestly, because I was like, y'all were not supportive of me. I blasted my school for how they treated me as well. I talked about really from working experience, how work environment is. I mean, I've said I've been vocal on my show about stuff that most people would not dare speak of. And I've also talked about my own mental health journey on there. And I've also had amazing guests on there as well that have shared their truth as well because they've been silenced too. And that's been it's kind of turned into more of a having my truth heard to I want people to be able to have their voice heard. And so it's been a mixture of all that and it's done very well. So it came from a place of the podcasting started as me being silenced for years. And I was like, I've had enough. I want my voice heard. You're going to hear it whether you like it or not.
That's it's cool though. It's in the top 5, and it's you speaking your truth. Everybody likes somebody that's honest. Like that's, I honestly feel like that's the shows that do really well are the ones that are being honest and raw and open and vulnerable,
And
whether people like to hear it or not.
right. And it was funny because the first episode that went viral was episode, and that's because I really showcased it on all my social media. And I'm still friends or like follow a lot of my old classmates on there. It was actually the first time where I had people from high school actually reach out to me and say stuff because they were worried I was saying shit about them on there. And I said, I said shit about you, but I'm not going to say what part of I'm not going to say what part of the episode I said it on, but there were some of them I did say good things on. So I would say, yeah, I said good things about you. But which if they had a brain, they could probably figure out the order I went in. But, they
Would you
didn't use all their brain cells.
would you say that the one that you kind of called people out was? Would you say that's one of your most memorable episodes?
Mhm. That was kind of one of the ones that blew up. It had like 100 streams. Like, I thought, whoa. I said, people are mad at me. I said, majority of them are probably from my classmates because they wanted to know what I said. And it's really cool looking at the analytics because it was actually people that actually could hear the whole episode. So, most people listen to like a second or like a 1 minute or 5 minutes and the viewer and
Hmm.
listening rate goes down.
Yeah.
It was like this for like a good part, which I mean, it would kind of go down, but it was a slow down. It would
Hmm.
go down very slowly. So that was kind of, I think, personally, one of my more longest heard episodes, which it was only, I think, like an hour or so, but it was like 45, 40 minutes to an hour. I mean, it wasn't too long.
And but then you have one of those that hit, and you're like, yes.
It surprised me how well it was. And I think that's the thing. I was like, majority of my classmates watching it because they just wanted to know if I said anything bad about them. I've yet to have anyone have messaged me after I've posted it saying, what this directed at me. I've yet to have that happen. I'm still waiting for that moment, but haven't received it yet. So I don't know if they just have not figured it out. They're too dumb. I don't know. Don't really honestly know. I thought I'd be getting a lot of messages from them, but I did bleep their name out. They can't fully come from me because I didn't blast them on there much as I
Wanted
think
to,
that's
yeah.
why. And some people could say, if you're wanting to speak the honest truth, why censor their name? And I even censored the people that were kind of, that had good things to say, only because I don't want to publicly blast these people on here, even though I think some of them deserved it. I don't want them to get really more attention than they need to. They
Hmm.
received enough attention from when they were in school. They don't need all my listeners going to give them attention. And also to the good ones, I don't want to like put their name out there and have all these people follow them and find them and everything. I always do that confidentiality thing. I take it to heart. It also saves me from lawsuits because they can't prove that I said it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Gives me a lot, but it was therapeutic. It really was. Honestly, it was a lot of built up anger I had from them over the years from them. And saying it all in that episode really like therapeutic. Most people wouldn't say that, but to me, it actually pretty much was.
And I believe you on that because I think that like starting to openly talk about like my own struggles has been really therapeutic for me. So I can see where you're coming from. Going back on the topic of, you said in high school you felt like an outcast. What advice would you give to someone currently feeling like an outcast or struggling with suicidal thoughts or mental health issues?
I would say for people that are an outcast, you tend to be the one that comes the most successful because you focus on yourself a lot during that time. And when you're not really the center of attention, it's really nice to come back and show them people how successful you are in the future. I was always the outcast. No one really ever talked to me. And it's kind of humble to know that I kind of became the most successful one of the whole class. I've not heard anything that my classmates are doing, like where there's like in the media. Now, some of them have become doctors and teachers and all that, but to be like kind of successful in this kind of field, it feels good. So if you are an outcast, you tend to be the one that becomes the most successful. And later in life, it turns out that those people that really were mean to you come back and want to work for you. And that, so if you're an outcast, I wouldn't take it really to heart. It just means that you're really, it just means you're special. Um, I've always said it as, you know, it'll be good to prove them back later in life. I always said that. And then the people that also have mental health issues, don't be ashamed of it. I was ashamed of it for years. And then finally able to be a spokesperson for it and be able to kind of an advocate for it. Don't keep it in, speak up as well. Don't hide it because it's like, really hard to keep it in. Better to get it out. So that's kind of my advice. And if you need to get help, get help. Who cares what people think? It really, later in life, it really gets to the point where I don't really give a fuck about anyone. That's kind of like the attitude I've had ever since graduation. I'm like, like, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I just kind of have been in that attitude. So once you get older, every day you turn to give less shits about what people have to say. So that's what I would say. Be true to yourself and don't let anyone get you down.
Yeah, and you have to get to that point where you just don't care what other people think and say. It's like, I think that's how, like, with me, I feel like I spent so much time people pleasing and living through others. It wasn't until I stopped caring that I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
If you could leave listeners with one message about overcoming depression and anxiety, what would it be?
That's a good question. I kind of go by my motto, once a fighter, always a fighter. Um, I don't know if it's a famous quote. If it is, a shout out to that person that said that. But I came up with that quote as a motto for my mental health. And I think it's really very impactful is once you start fighting, you'll always end up fighting. Once you overcome it, if it ever comes and happens again, you'll always be able to fight through it and get through it. And that's kind of the motto I would say is once you fight through something, you will always be a fighter to the end, no matter what kind of pain comes your way, what other kind of roadblocks come your way, you'll always come out on top and that you'll never give up.
And where can people find you?
I'm pretty much everywhere. The podcast Lethal Venom, it's if you want a kind of idea, literally it's this kind of attitude on the show, but it's more I kind of do more interviews now than personalized episodes, which I'm hoping to change that soon to where it's kind of more of an even balance. But yeah, it's Lethal Venom. It's wherever you get podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora, pretty much everywhere. So feel free to check it out on any of those platforms. You can find it on social media as well. Instagram and TikTok, it's Lethal Venom Podcast. And then Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, it's Noah's Podcast. So feel free to follow the platform and podcast on any of those platforms. That's kind of usually where I am the most. I'm on Instagram and TikTok the most to promote it. And then episodes usually come out on all the platforms at the same time. That's usually the popular ones I'm on. But yeah, that's our technically where you can find me the most.
And one last thing here. We covered quite a bit of ground here tonight. Is there anything that we did not discuss that you'd like to bring up?
Think so. I think we kind of covered everything.
Well, no, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I admire your attitude and all the stuff that you've had to overcome and with the struggles that you've had. Keep going, keep pushing through it. It's, I love to hear these stories. Just thank you so much for coming on and spending an hour with me.
Thank you. I appreciate you for reaching out and letting me come on. It was an honor to be on here. I can't wait. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
And thank you to all that are listening. If this story resonated with you, please share it. And you can follow us on any major podcast platform. Thanks again. Until next time.